following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Here comes pressure, throws it to Ekeler on the screen. He's got a block to the 10, to the 5, into the end zone.
High pass. Did Williams make that catch? My goodness.
For a first down, Herbert with time. Now running out of time. Throws on the run. Down the sideline. Caught in the end zone. Keenan Allen for the touchdown.
Throws, and again it's intercepted. And that's Asante Samuel.
Here's another one. Watch out.
How did it feel when Derwin James absolutely powerbombed the out of it on national television?
You're listening to the Shock Therapy Podcast with Tyler Lawrence and Zach Alfers.
And before we get into our show, I want to talk a little bit about Mahler Bros. If you go to mahlerbros.com, take a look at their website, you're going to find some great golf-related products. I'm talking about those frat boy golf polos made of polyester and spandex. These premium polos, they help wick away moisture. They keep you cool in the fairway. I'm talking about fabric that feels soft and provides a slim, wrinkle-free fit. Shoulder seams that are designed to provide mobility in your golf swing. By the way, they've got like 50 different kinds of designs that are just awesome. They're going to make you look good. Also, they got drinkware for those early morning golf outings with your buddies. Plenty of tumblers and mugs for bringing coffee out onto the green. Also, be sure to check out some of their signature tees. Don't wait to try out some of this awesome golf apparel. Upgrade your golf attire at mahlerbros.com. Get 15% off at Mahler Bros. That's belly up at checkout. 15% off Mahler Bros. Turn heads on the golf course when you wear Mahler Bros. What's up, Zach? Let's get into this. It's free agency. We're here. We haven't made a whole lot of moves, but there is a whole bunch of stuff to talk about.
I'm doing one of these because I just got an ESPN notification. Want to check your? Did you get this one too?
I have not. Who do we sign?
The best looking dog in the dog show is coming back. Morgan Fox is a Charger for the next season. This just came across my phone. I don't know. Huge. That's huge. I don't know what the deal is. But that is a tremendous hole that we no longer need to address. Morgan Fox is really, really coming along nice. He understands that defense. A really important interior pass rusher for us, which is coming just more and more important in today's NFL. Morgan Fox is coming back, and I'm excited. Way to kick off the show. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, that's huge. That's actually was the biggest hole I saw remaining on our defense right now was Morgan Fox, who is going to take over for that position. That's huge. He was such a valuable player to us last season. In the run as a interior pass rusher, like that is a huge. I'm so glad that you went and popped off like that. That's awesome.
It came across so ESPN is always like the first app that I get when I get a new phone. And it's one of the only apps that I'll keep notifications on. And so it's little stuff like that where it just makes my day.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Morgan Fox is a huge part of this defense.
Wow.
And he fits Brandon Staley's scheme so well. I'm really excited to see, maybe not super excited, but interested to see what that contract looks like, because I saw that his agent was expecting his value to be between $8 to $10 million a year. That's going to eat into the Chargers already little. Chargers have about $10 million left in spending space this season. And there's some big contracts still coming up in the following couple seasons. You're talking about, almost 50% of our salary cap in Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and J.C. Jackson, Corey Linsley, I think, are the Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. So those guys are like taking up like 50% of next year's cap. So the fact that we got Morgan Fox is just huge.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. I'm excited for the numbers to come out, and I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that that position group today has just been all over the place. There's a lot of moving going on. Draymond Jones, Zach Allen, DeMarcus Walker, all in different spots. Fletcher Cox got a new deal. Javon Hargrave is going over to San Francisco. Dalvin Tomlinson, Shai Tuttle, all these guys, Sheldon Rankins, all of these guys got deals today. So I wonder if that factored into to Morgan Fox's discussions that him and his agent have been having. I wonder if the well just went dry on there, and then the Chargers, whatever they had on the table, was the best to come across his desk. Interesting to see those final numbers.
All right, before we get into other players that the Chargers have signed in free agency, let's talk about Trey Pipkins getting a 3-year, $21.75 million deal. That averages $7.25 million over 3 years. That could be a steal if he continues his upward trajectory. I think that he was probably the most important free agent that the Chargers had to go and re-sign. And as soon as they re-signed him, they let go of Matt Feiler. So it seemed like Matt Feiler being on this roster really depended upon whether or not the Chargers figured out their right tackle situation. Sucks for Matt Feiler. I thought Matt Feiler was pretty good in his first season. Last year had a little bit of a down year. But Trey Pipkins is such a huge addition just because of the position being right tackle, protecting Justin Herbert. And he's homegrown talent. And it took him 3 years to get into the groove on that 4th year, really came out strong, played through an injury, played well even throughout the injury. But having him under contract for the next 3 seasons is just a big boost to this Chargers team.
No, I'm excited for the first time in a long time. We have a solid starting 5 on that offensive line. It's crazy what just 2 years addressing that unit does for a team. This team, compare this offensive line to 2 years, 3 years ago, completely different. You got a bunch of I love the combination of young up and coming rookies with the presence of Corey Linsley right there in the middle, kind of leading the charge. I'm excited. Trey Pipkins deserved that contract, and you don't let young up and coming players at that position leaving free agency. I think the Chargers did a phenomenal job restructuring the big guys at the top of the depth chart to be able to have some room to operate with the Trey Pipkins, getting a deal done with Morgan Fox. So all of that, all credit to the Chargers front office. It might not be the most flashy or exciting, but all of these moves are necessary. And I'm at this point way more excited than I was anticipating I'd be at this point, day one, not even a couple hours into free agency. So phenomenal start. Love to keep this momentum going through the draft and into training camp.
And the other thing you got to take into account, the Chargers have 5 starting offensive linemen under contract for the next 3 seasons, no matter what.
Yeah, huge.
So from left to right, you've got Rashawn Slater. He's still got 3 years left on his rookie deal, plus a 5th-year option. Left guard is going to be Jamari Sawyer with the release of Matt Feiler. Jamari Sawyer played really good at left tackle. The team saw him first as a guard. Injuries kind of forced him into the left tackle position, played fairly well as a 5th-round draft pick. I would say he played outstanding for where he was drafted. He's probably going to slot in at left guard with the ability for injury to be the team's swing tackle, and they can figure out, backup interior offensive linemen either through free agency or in the draft. Corey Linsley's under contract for the next 3 seasons. Right guard, Zion Johnson, we still have him under contract for the next 3 seasons plus 4 seasons plus a 5th-year option, including 5th-year option. And then you got Trey Pipkins. So left to right, that's continuity on the offensive line. And this shouldn't, in my opinion, I don't think the Chargers should shy away from drafting another interior or outside lineman in this draft within the first 3 rounds.
No, I love the new Staley era led Charger team, how they've gone all in on addressing this offensive line. But what I think this move does, most importantly, there's no longer a hole on the starting lineup. But you're always looking to improve your roster where you can, but it's no longer a need. So it allows Telesco come draft day to go the best player available. If that best player is an offensive lineman, or you're adding to your depth, you're just making this team better. You always want pieces, but the need is not there. It's not necessary. The starting guys are in place. Anything at this point is just going to add to the depth, which has been a problem for the Chargers, especially on that unit. It was last year. It seems it's always we never finish the year with the starting 5 linemen that we went in anticipating. So anywhere we can add some more depth pieces, get some more developmental guys. Corey Linsley's not going to be able to play at the level he's playing at forever. That's just a reality. So whenever you can, hedge those bets to make it from, not having to rebuild and just adding pieces here and there once, pieces fall off. That's exactly where you want to be. And I think that the Chargers are trending in the right direction at that position.
In other news, the Chargers re-signed Easton Stick to a 1-year, $1.8 million deal. He's going to be the backup quarterback. I think that they're probably going to find somebody in the 6th, 7th round, maybe like a Stetson Bennett, a Malik Cunningham, somebody else to kind of bring in to groom as kind of that third option. And then Foster Sarell and Cameron Dicker were both tendered. They did not release Dustin Hopkins, which means there's going to be a kicking battle, which makes a lot of sense because Dustin Hopkins doesn't cost the team very much money to keep him on the roster. If they do cut him in training camp, that's going to be a post-June 1st cut. That'll be an additional $2 million in cap space that they can use into the season. And it gives Cameron Dicker some competition in training camp. So not thinking that a second-year player is just going to be given the reins, which is going to be awesome. Foster Sarell started 1 game last season over Storm Norton. Probably going to be your swing tackle and in a pinch if you need him to do that. We'll see how he progresses during training camp. But those are your big signings. In terms of new free agents, let's talk about Eric Kendricks. What did you think about the Eric Kendricks signing?
I was excited just for the fact I love Drew Tranquill. I thought he was a phenomenal player for us, and I'm excited to see the deal that he ends up getting because I think he's going to deserve it in the end. But I love Eric Kendricks. I've always been a phenomenal or a big fan of his, big energy guy, a veteran in this league, a guy who can do a little bit of everything for you, can cover, can blitz. He gives you a lot. And I think the most important thing is the veteran leadership that you're adding to a group that an important position and a group that has a lot of young guys with Kenneth Murray's coming back. We got Alma and Agbemiga in house, a lot of young guys, and not saying that Drew is not a leader, but he just hasn't been performing at the all-pro level year in, year out that Eric Kendricks does. So just that level of maturity that he brings to a position group that hasn't been good historically here in Los Angeles. I just think the guy brings so much beyond just the play on the field. He's a guy who goes about his work the right way. And I think it sends the message to the rest of the league and to guys who we have on the roster right now. The Chargers are all in on this window of competing at the highest level. They're going to do everything they can to add supplemental pieces here and there. But I think Eric Kendricks is a phenomenal player, and I can't wait to see him don the powder blue next season.
And it's sad because I think Drew Tranquill turned into a fan favorite, very much how Kaiser White did, right? Like he's a great teammate. He's a great personality. He's got his own podcast. He's very involved with the fan base. Eric Kendricks, 31 years old, former All-Pro, former Butt-Kiss winner in college football. Only 1 Pro Bowl to his name in that same year he got the All-Pro. I think he's more physical as a linebacker overall. He might have lost some of that athleticism. I mean, he's 31, about to be 32 years old. So you'd expect some regression there, but he's still an above average player in terms of coverage, right? So he's very, very good at carrying crossers over the middle. We've already seen a couple interceptions in this little highlight film right here. But overall, I really like the talent. I really like the ability for him to be a captain. He's a very smart, instinctual player, probably going to be wearing that green dot, calling the defense. if he's able to pick it up in time. And he's just a team player too. Like he's a big locker room guy. He's from UCLA, so he's got that LA. I think he's going to become a fan favorite very, very quickly. And I love everything about the signing. Granted, we did not get to retain Drew Tranquil. I know there's a lot of talks that we could potentially still sign him. He is still unsigned. There isn't very many Chargers free agents who have been signed. No Nasir Adderley, J.K. Scott's still out there. We'll talk about Austin Ekeler here in a bit. But in all, I just don't think that the Chargers have the finances to re-sign Drew Tranquil and to have that second. Plus, with the Chargers playing that penny front, right? You've got 5 defensive linemen down, you've got 1 linebacker, and you've got 5 DBs. And that is the basis of the Chargers defense, with it being a pass-happy league. I just don't see the value in re-signing Drew Tranquil. And I think there's more value now with Eric Kendricks on this roster, him finding a place to play somewhere else. So that's my thoughts on it. It's a 2-year, $13 million deal. Feels like a little bit of a pay cut for like that. It seems like a team-friendly hometown type of deal for the Chargers. But he's an awesome athlete and a great person, and I'm really excited to see what he's able to do wearing the powder blue.
Well, and it might be a scheme thing, but just looking at that tape, something that I noticed was just all of the tackle, like just the depth that Eric Kendricks was when he's making these plays as opposed to Tranquil. So it's kind of, and I think it might have a little bit to do with the front. Minnesota's D-line had a lot more synergy the last couple of years than ours has. But look, he's always in the backfield. So I think he's more of an attacking player, I feel like, in the run game, which is absolutely something we need. I'm so sick and tired of first contact for our defense being, at 5 yards, 6 yards into, where we're setting up. So bringing the attack to the offense, I love to see that. And Eric Kendricks is going to bring that on a play-to-play basis.
Let's talk about Austin Ekeler requesting the trade. I know this is going to be painful for you, but it's true. Like, he outplayed his contract. He signed a 4-year, $24 million deal 3 seasons ago. This year is going to be his contract year. He's still very, very affordable at the price point he's at. The Chargers did negotiate with him on a contract extension. They couldn't come to terms of the value for paying a running back who's going to be 28 years old. And this is his last big payday. Another fan favorite. A lot of fans are kind of pissed that he's asking for more money, but let's be real. He earned it. He earned a huge payday, led the NFL in total touchdowns 2 seasons in a row. He's been healthy his entire career. His rookie season, he broke his hand, wrapped it up, and continued to play special teams toward the end of the season. Had a gruesome hamstring injury the first year that he signed that big deal for him. Came back the same season, something that would typically end a season for a player. You're talking about like the tendons ripping off the bone, and he managed to fight his way back to continue to play multiple games at the end of that year. What are your thoughts on Austin Ekeler, and you have any ideas, trade scenarios, anything like that of what he's worth, and if he's even going to be able to find a trade partner?
Yeah. So a couple things. I mean, the first thing when I saw that as a fan of the team, I was bummed out. I was expecting both sides to be able to get to a deal, but I understand the business side of things, why it didn't get there. Chargers, obviously, from their perspective, they're in a cap credit situation, have a small window there with Justin Herbert on his rookie contract. They're trying to compete at the highest level today. And maybe Ekeler doesn't fit in with that as far as the money goes. As far as Ekeler, he's already taken the pay cut. This 3-year deal he signed when he signed it, that was a team-friendly deal. So he's getting older at a position that's devalued in the league, at a position that's historically injury-prone. It's just the nature of that position. They get banged up. He's not going to be able to play forever. This is his time to cash in. I just think that the timing of things really don't really benefit Austin Ekeler. I don't think he's going to get what he's expecting. The league has shown that they don't really value the position, but they don't really value him. Not going to the Pro Bowl, not missing out on all pro snubs. He's not carried in. He's not looked at in the same light as Alvin Kamara. He's not on the same level as Christian McCaffrey, but he's not looked at as one of those elite pass catchers, even though he plays running back. He's just not looked at the same. So I don't think he's going to get what he's expecting. I do think he's going to end up coming. I really hope he comes back. I think the biggest thing going against him now is the new news coming out of Dallas that Ezekiel Elliott's now on the market. So he's not even the number one running back on the market today. He does have to compete with an Ezekiel Elliott whose play style kind of fits the mold more of what the NFL is looking for. Not every offense has a usage for an Austin Ekeler. Now, I think a good landing spot would be like a Buffalo, a high-powered offense that uses that pass-catching type of back as a chess piece. But I just don't see the need there. They got some young guys in-house. They went out and traded for some guys last year, did some shuffling with Zach Moss and Singletary. So I just don't think he's going to get what he wants. I understand wanting to test the market, see what's out there. I just don't think there's a whole lot at this time. And
here's the other thing is Austin Ekeler is not going to be valued as highly as a true running back who makes his money on the ground. Like that's right. That's the thing. And you're talking about Zeke, like Kellen Moore and Zeke have history together. That right off the bat makes it bad for Austin Ekeler. I've heard some talk that, potentially maybe what this actually is Austin Ekeler going out, finding his value, taking that value back to the Chargers, saying, hey, look, this is what I'm worth. If you trade for me, another team's already offered me, a 3-year, $30 million deal or something like that, which, it's just really difficult to value running backs who are 28 years old. That 30, as soon as a running back hits 30, there's a steep cliff that they drop down. Austin hasn't showed any signs of regression. I think he's actually gotten better from year to year. But your running back, you want to be a running back first and a pass catcher second. I feel like Austin Ekeler was always at his best as a number 2 where the sights weren't on him, where players weren't looking at him as the most dominant threat on the ground. And he's been kind of handcuffed. He's gotten a lot of touches over the last couple seasons, just being the only capable back at carrying the workload. But as a between the tackles runner, like he's not a tier 1 running back in that exact facet of the game. I mean, he's small, he runs hard, he bounces off tackles, he makes a lot of guys miss, and then he's got that threat as a receiver, but he's not a wide receiver, right? He's not going to be able to make that kind of money. And I don't necessarily know how many teams are willing to trade and sign a 28-year-old running back to a $10 million deal and also give up a second, third, fourth round pick. I mean, the only comparable player that there is to him is Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey got traded to San Francisco last year for a second, third, and a fourth, and he already had the big contract. But I just don't think that Austin Ekeler is the same type of exact running back in terms of, take the ball with a dive, go down and pick up those yards, creating for himself. He's not at the tier of Christian McCaffrey. He's close, right? I think he's a tier 2 running back who is undervalued by a lot of teams, but being undervalued by a lot of teams does not make you a great trade candidate. Yes, he's got the touchdowns. Really, that's all he's got, right? He's got, he's a player that can get you 1,800 yards from scrimmage, but teams want a running back who can hit the hole, right? Austin Ekeler is never going to be that. He's a offensive weapon, a tier 2 offensive weapon. He's earned a bigger payday. He's outplayed his contract. It was a steal. It was a bargain. Yeah. The Chargers don't have the money to pay him, especially looking at the future being Justin Herbert, future being this ridiculous cap situation we're going to have to figure out next season. And we have him under contract. We have all the leverage we need. The Chargers are in the driver's seat of this. So I don't know how many teams are going to value him at what he is valued, right? Like his actual value as a player and his actual value toward a team.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest disconnect here is Austin Eckler's value of himself is not matching up with how teams view him. And I get it. I think he's a phenomenal player. I've never had a single bad thing to say about him on this show. I think he's a phenomenal talent. He's just different. And so I think teams are going to shy away just because he isn't a guy you can just plug in and play into every system. He's a guy you kind of have to build around. He's not everything you're looking for at the position. He's very different. I think there's value there. But like you were saying, he was at his prime when he was a number 2, when he didn't have those touches. I'm not saying he can't run the football when asked. That's just not his strong suit. It's not where he's going to thrive. So I hope he gets what he wants. And I hope what he wants is an extended contract with the Chargers, because I love to watch the guy play. Really excited for the potential of bringing him back with the ascent of Josh Kelly and Isaiah Spiller there. Hopefully those guys can take the between the tackles, hard-nosed runs that we're looking for and we're giving to Ekeler at this point. So save a little bit of juice, as we're seeing here, so he doesn't get tackled from at the 2-yard line. But I really just don't think he's going to get nearly the same as what he wants. And it's a very different situation than the Melvin Gordon situation. At least that he's giving the team enough time to find a comparable replacement. And he's not holding out. He's not holding back the team. Is he going to play for us? Is he not? So I like the straightforwardness about it. I don't think you can compare the situations. Just hope at the end of the day he gets what he wants. I'm praying that is with the Chargers.
Yeah, I hope so as well. But if he's not, what are we going to get for him? What do you think his value is in just a straight trade, just draft capital? What are you going to get a first-round draft pick out of him?
No, I think I think a first-round pick is a little too rich. I kind of see like a third and a fourth, maybe like a second and a fifth. I think he's a 2 picks. That'd be the most that I'd be willing, and I think they're going to be mostly, if it's day 2, it's going to be a later, like a mid day 3 pick. Otherwise, I think 3 and 4 is kind of that's kind of how I value the guy.
The way that I look at it, right, is any team that is trading for him knows that they're going to be trading and signing him to a big extension. So that has to factor into the compensation, right? The cost of the player in terms of contract, in addition to giving away draft capital to get him. He's worth a mid-round pick. He is.
Yeah.
He's not Christian McCaffrey. He's close. He's not Christian McCaffrey. You're not going to get the same type of contract. And that's just the way it goes. That's the fact of it. That's the truth of the matter. I do want to bring up one interesting trade scenario. I don't know if you saw, but Derwin James retweeted Dalvin Cook. And Dalvin Cook.
I saw that.
Yeah. And while it seems way off brand, right? Like the Chargers trading Austin Ekeler for Dalvin Cook straight up. Let's just theoretically say that that's possible. Why would the Vikings do it? Vikings only have $4 million in cap space, and Dalvin Cook is on the books for $10 million cap hit this year. Austin Ekeler, $6 million. So they would give themselves an additional $4 million cap space through the trade, and the Chargers get a legitimate downhill, real running back who's got power, who's shifty, who can do a little bit of everything. I think Dalvin Cook's a top 5 running back, top 10 running back in the league. I don't even know if it would be an upgrade. It might be just a 1-for-1. You get a player who's less of a receiving threat, but more of a true running back. Why the Chargers would do it? That's where it gets a little bit hard because Dalvin Cook's under contract for multiple seasons. But the Vikings definitely need to go and get themselves some cap space. They need to figure out a way to fit under the cap and become a legitimate threat next season. They have some holes that they need to fill. So I think Dalvin Cook could potentially be a trade candidate. I want to know what you think about getting Dalvin Cook in a trade for Austin Ekeler.
Yeah, I think, it's fun to play Madden franchise owner, right? It's fun to plug and play guys on this team and that team. I think Dalvin's a phenomenal back. I think you hit it right on the head. A top 5 back in this league who has the more traditional skill set that you're looking for. And I think I want Ekeler back. And I want Ekeler back, and it's not like Dalvin Cook is a poor receiver. He's just not on the same level as a
He's
Ekeler
not the route runner.
No, he's not. He's get to the flats, give me the ball, let me see what I can do with it, kind of pass catcher. But there's a role for that. I think he brings you a lot more physicality to the running back room, something that we haven't really seen since Melvin Gordon was there. And then you have with Cook, you don't have the goal line fumbling issue. So I think he makes us a bigger threat in short yardage situations. I think he instantly kind of elevates the red zone, where if you can get a guy who can get you 3-4 yards every carry, you're going to score a lot of touchdowns when you get into the red zone. I just don't see. I'd entertain it. I just don't see it happening. I think it was, from Derwin James' side, a guy that he's always liked, a guy who he played college football with at Florida State. So I think it's just guys being friendly, just kind of wanting to promote, their brothers in arms, more like insight. I know a lot of people want to read into more than what's there. I think it's just a guy rooting for a former teammate. Nothing more than that, but I wouldn't mind
here's the thing is, why did Dalvin Cook go and post that, right? Like, why, like, it's not like he's a free agent on the market. Like, he's still got 3 years left on his contract. Like, it made it seem like there's at least interest, or at least there was a conversation, a phone call, something happened that went and like, he doesn't do that for no reason, right? So it doesn't even have to be Austin Ekeler. It could have been another team inquiring about him. Alexander Madison's a free agent and a player that they want to re-sign. They don't have the funds to re-sign him, but there's got to be something brewing with him. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be an Austin Ekeler trade. It could be just another team inquiring, knowing that the Vikings have some cap issues right now and they need to fill out their roster. They were in the playoffs last season. They went on like a 13-4 record, which is phenomenal. But just in the grand scheme of things, like, there is something brewing, at least conversationally, that Dalvin Cook knows about. And it doesn't mean anything's imminent. It just means that conversation has been had, and we know Austin Ekeler is looking for a trade partner, potentially. The Chargers gave him permission to go and seek it. So, player for player, if you're Tom Telesco and you get this phone call from whoever the GM is from the Vikings, say, hey, we want Austin Ekeler. It gives us some cap space. You get a dominant running back this season. It's only going to cost you $4 million additional in cap this year to go and make that trade. And you get a legitimate running back. And without a doubt, next season is going to be a cap casualty season. We're going to lose a lot of players. It's going to be very difficult for us if it's an all-in year and you have the funds to make this happen, are you going to make the trade?
Well, we'll see. I think it's definitely an all-in type of move, especially for a guy like in an Austin Ekeler's case, who's not happy, thinks he can get more somewhere else. If you're going to trade that swap for guys who are very similar, their skill sets are different, but just the value from the position perspective, I think it makes sense from both sides when you break it down like that. I'd love to see Dalvin Cook in powder blue. I've always been a big fan of his.
And I also think it's a Kellen Moore type of running back.
Sure. Big, physical, between the tackle guy, one cut, just get out of my way. I think it makes sense from a lot of different avenues. Well, you kind of just have to wait it out, because we're not in those behind the scenes meetings. So who knows what was said to Dalvin Cook.
The last thing I kind of wanted to bring up and talk about, there isn't a whole lot left to talk about. So what are your thoughts? There's two players that are still rumored to the Chargers. John Johnson, who played under Brandon Staley with the Rams, who spent the last 2 seasons with the Browns. He just was released, and I know there's interest in the Chargers bringing him to go and play probably in front of Alohi Gilman. The Chargers love to, for as long as I can remember, they've always liked playing 3 safeties pretty significantly, and this would be that guy. I know we have JT Woods on the roster, barely played last season, has tackling issues. John Johnson really fits the mold of what the Chargers want at that position, a guy who can tackle, make tackles in space, which is super, super important. And it gives you additional time to go and develop JT Woods, who's under contract for the next 3 seasons. And you're not asking him to play a significant role next year. See how he develops in training camp. I'll talk about Dalton Schultz after. Let me get your thoughts on John Johnson. You making that move?
Yeah, bring him down. I like the idea. I think it makes sense as long as the dollar figures add up to where we are at as a cap crunch team. And that I love it for a couple of reasons. For one, it doesn't force your hand with the Alohi Gilman situation. I think he's trending in the right direction, but you don't ever want to give a young up and coming guy too much than he can handle before it's time. So it kind of allows you to continue to take him from a role player into a more defined role player into that starter. You're not making that jump from role player 1 year to starter. It also gives you a true center fielder, somebody that we haven't really had. You've seen the swings and misses with Nasir Adderley over the years. Really bummed that didn't kind of live up to the potential. I thought we were going to get a phenomenal player when we drafted him. Just didn't really live up to the billing there. So I love it. You get Staley, another DB, another versatile DB, to start playing chess, which he loves to do. You can't have too many DBs if you're looking at it from Brandon Staley's perspective. It also frees up, I think, our most important chess piece on the defensive side in Derwin James. He doesn't have to play free safety just because he's the only guy. It gives you a lot of different opportunities to exploit if you're Brandon Staley and the coordinator of that defense. So I'm excited. I would love to see it happen. Now the agents and the team have to get on the same page as far as the money. But I think it makes sense as just the player and in the scheme and what it is that we are trying to accomplish as a defensive team, as a defense.
Yeah, and under Brandon Staley, like John Johnson went from relatively unknown, a player that nobody really knew, in a kind of a crowded safety room. You're talking about Taylor Rapp being over there, and they've had a lot of success having that physicality with the Rams in the secondary, and I think he would make a really great fit. LaMarcus Joyner was in that safety group as well. They've had a lot of good safeties over there, but John Johnson really made a name for himself, made himself a lot of money playing under Brandon Staley, and a return makes a lot of sense. It's probably going to be a short 1 to 2 year deal. I just wonder and question whether or not if it's a position of need for the Chargers, especially knowing they only had $10 million in caps and spending space for this season. They probably and I don't know if you've had a chance to look it up yet, Morgan Fox's contract. But
I was just taking a look. I haven't seen any numbers.
It's going to be a little bit less that they have the ability to sign. And I don't necessarily know if it's a need. You've got a 3rd round draft pick from last season, JT Woods, that you're expecting to develop into more of the role that Brandon Staley wants from the position. John Johnson seems a little bit like a luxury. Is it a luxury or is it important enough to go and make that type of signing?
Well, yeah, no, I definitely do think it's more of a luxury than a necessity, especially with, and I think it really, I'm going back and forth, and I'm kind of debating with myself in my head while I speak. Just because we don't know how we're going to address the nickel corner situation, a position that is absolutely vital in Brandon Staley's defense. And Bryce Callahan absolutely locked it down last year. It's not a guarantee he's coming back. If he doesn't come back, you're going to have to fill that void either through free agency or with the young and upcoming guys we got. I think Draw Taylor played really well when he got snaps there. You got some other young and up and coming guys who could help fill in here and there with Raheem Lane and Leonard. But then, if you let Callahan leave, you're not in as good of a situation as you are if you can re-sign that nickel cornerback. If we get a nickel guy, a starting caliber nickel corner, I think the John Johnson addition is a little bit of a luxury. If you don't have that guy, another guy who can fill in that nickel, you could slot a couple different guys there at nickel. I think it becomes a more entertain. You can entertain it a couple different ways, more than you can now. I just think we have to take it step at a
Let me throw
time.
this out there for you. In terms of that nickel cornerback position, right?
Mhm.
Could you not put Derwin James in the nickel and have Eloy Gilman I feel like that nickel position doesn't need to be a corner. It needs to be somebody who's physical, somebody who can run and tackle and can cover, right? And that doesn't need to be a corner. It typically is, but you're seeing a lot of safeties, right, that are coming in and playing in that corner. Think about Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson played safety, also played corner, right? But he was able to kind of move around. Jimmy Ward, another player who started out at safety, now is one of the best corners out in the NFL right now. So I don't think you necessarily have to have a corner. You can play John Johnson in that nickel position. You can move Eloy Gilman down. You can play Derwin James. And now you've knocked out multiple. You've gone and been able to create that need by signing a player that you wouldn't have expected to play in that position, right? And intuitively, that J.C. Jackson's still on this roster. He's going to be coming back during the season. You've got Asante Samuel Jr. who can play in the slot. You can sign somebody like John Johnson here and be able to fill that role until J.C. Jackson comes back. If J.C. Jackson comes back,
Uh-oh. Am I frozen or are you frozen?
looks like I'm still here. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and talk. Oh, there you are, Zach. Lost you for a second.
I know. What's up? I'm back.
All right. So moving on from that, we talked a little bit about that. Let's talk about Dalton Schultz. What are your thoughts on Dalton Schultz? Is he a player that also is kind of a luxury, or do you think that's a need, knowing that Kellen Moore plays a lot of two tight end sets and he comes from that system, and there's a lot of interest with Dalton Schultz?
Yeah, I think it's a more of a need than another safety on this roster. Especially with, like you mentioned, Kellen Moore loves his double tight end sets, and I'm really excited for it because I think we have some guys in Donald Parham, and if we bring Gerald McKitty back or Gerald Everett back, guys who are not necessarily legit tight end ones, but if you give them in a system where they're tight end two, they're not getting the best interior defender as far as the DBs go. I think that just elevates their game. And so I think we are still missing that true all-around tight end one who can block for you in the run game, who can catch passes over the middle down the seam. So I think it brings a lot to this offense. The scheme fit is there. The familiarity is there. I think tight end is a much bigger need than another safety. I think we desperately need the next heir apparent to obviously no one's ever going to be Antonio Gates, but at least when we had Hunter Henry in house, there was a sense of the position secure. Can you hear me?
Sorry, I went on mute because my dog's barking.
Oh, gotcha. No, I think the fit makes a lot of sense. I think we're desperately needing a true tight end one who can give you everything that you need from the position. I love Gerald Everett's pass catching ability, very limited as far as a run blocker. And then you're taking a look at Dalton Schultz right there. He is phenomenal out in space, moving guys out of the way. So the guys behind him can make a play. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Again, we're going to have to talk about the money. It all comes down to the money when you're the Chargers and you're messing around with $5 million to spend. So it makes sense if we can get a deal done. I like the player. I like his age, a guy who's just entering into his prime. And then you're giving Justin Herbert another safety blanket at a position where at this point he's made Jared Cook look relevant. He's given Gerald Everett his best season as a pro. So I'd love to see what he could do with a Hunter Henry style of tight end who you don't necessarily need to take out on a rep to rep basis just because of, oh, this guy can't block. He's just a pass catcher. So I think he gives you a lot more versatility to the position, and I think it just elevates the group because you got a lot of guys who could do some things, not all of it. He's the all-around guy who kind of ties the group together. So I'd like to see it happen if it materializes. At this point, I just don't see the money working. This guy is due a lot of money.
That's the issue, right? It's the money. And then you also take into account the really, really strong draft class that we have.
That too,
it is a luxury, right? Like, it's not a need. Gerald Everett, I don't know why. A lot of people seem to be very down on Gerald Everett. And I thought Gerald Everett had a phenomenal season as somebody who had to take way more targets than he probably needed because of all the injuries. And well, Dalton Schultz is a much better run blocker, as you're seeing here. Like, absolutely much better run blocker, better overall tight end. I still think it's a luxury, especially when you got guys like Darnell Washington, right? Michael Mayer, who could potentially be a target for the Chargers. Kincaid. I mean, there's so many tight ends in this draft class where you might not need to go and get a Dalton Schultz at, $5, $6, $7, $8 million a year, potentially more, because I still think that like he was like third in the NFL in receiving yards like last season, right? And among tight ends. So like he's a threat he's a threat. Don't get me wrong. Like, he's a threat. He's a player who breaks tackles. He does a lot. I just don't know if it's the signing that the Chargers need. And I don't think he's going to stay on the market. So if they're going to sign him, they need to do it soon. And there is that familiarity with Kellen Moore, who is offensive coordinator. It seems more like a luxury to me, even though we know that the Chargers play a lot of two tight end sets under Kellen Moore. It's going to happen. There's a good 6 tight ends who could come in and play significant roles in the draft and play them well. So that's the hard part, is whether or not you decide to get it in the draft or you decide that you need Dalton Schultz now. We'll have to go and see what ends up happening out of that. To kind of close things out on this, there are a handful of free agents that the Chargers need to, I guess, re-sign. The biggest one for me is J.K. Scott. J.K. Scott, I think, is super, super valuable. I'm really surprised they haven't come to a agreement of some sort. Bryce Callahan is out there. If they are going to re-sign Bryce Callahan, it's probably going to be after the draft. He's going to be a 32-year-old slot corner who didn't have a big market last season and was not super expensive. Those are the 2 guys that I'm still waiting on, that I'm most interested in. So any closing remarks, Zach, on those players or any other players? If you're not completely frozen, I'm trying to keep talking so that you can unfreeze.
You can't hear me? Oh, I am frozen.
Oh, I can hear you. I didn't know if you were frozen or not. Any closing remarks?
It goes in and out. No, I'm just excited that the off season is barely an off season, right? I feel like we were just watching the Super Bowl. But just like that, the unofficial start to the 2023 season, it's going to be a hell of a ride. Way more excited than I thought I was going to be. Just several hours into free agency. Seems like there's a lot more work to be done. Excited to see what steps the Chargers take to expand this Super Bowl window that they believe they have, and I'm kind of buying into it. I'm excited to get some more deals done and get a better picture of what this team is going to look like come opening day.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what it's going to look like. We got we got a lot of pro days coming up. The NFL draft is just around the corner. We're talking about 45 days until that happens. And then I guess I'll kind of just break this down to kind of close things off. If you take a look in my background right now, you're going to see a ton of stuff that we plan on giving away. Got a lot of stuff in the background here that was donated to us. I'm going to give it all away. So there's a Darren Sproles jersey. See if you guys can take a look a little bit.
All the stuff on the couch, right? You're not giving away your jerseys.
Not that stuff. That's all mine. All the Ekeler, Herbert, Charlie Joyner, Sean Merriman, Phillip Rivers jerseys are mine. But at the bottom there, all of this stuff was donated, and we're going to be giving it all away here in a couple of weeks. We're thinking about doing some sort of type of draft giveaway. We'll let you guys know what that ends up looking like here soon. But I'm excited to get this out because there's a lot of stuff there. There's some signed footballs. There's some Darren Sproles jersey. There's a little mini helmet. There's a lot of stuff in the background, some nice jackets, stuff that we're going to be giving away. We'll figure out how we plan on doing that here soon. Kind of brainstorm a little bit and see, how we can get this out to our fans. But that's all I've got, and we'll talk to you guys next week.